I'm going to show you how you can migrate DHCP services from one Windows server to another server. In this example, I'm migrating it from a Windows Server 2022 to a Windows Server 2022, but this will work for migrating it from older versions of Windows Server to the latest version. So I'm currently on my domain controller, which is hosting my DHCP. So if I open the DHCP console, we can see I've got my active scope with my address pool, leases, any reservations, and all my options. So now I've identified where our current scope is hosted. If we go onto our new server that we want to host our DHCP on, we need to first install the role. So if we install the DHCP server role, add the feature, and then just next through the rest of the wizard. Once that's installed, we can close the wizard, and then we can complete the configuration by committing and then authorizing the DHCP server. And then if we open up the DHCP console on our new server, we can check that it is running and that it is authorized. So now we need to actually import the scopes. So if we come back to our original server and we open up a PowerShell window, we can run the following PowerShell command, which is the export-DHCP server, and then -computer name, and the name of your DHCP server, and then -file with a location of where you want to store the export with a name.xml, and then -leases to also export the current DHCP leases. Now this file location does have to exist. So I've got a ctemp and it has exported a DHCP XML file. Now if we just edit this, just so we can check, and then if we scroll down to the very bottom, and then just up a bit, we should see a list of our current scope. So we've got our 2 reservations and then our lease, because that's all we've actually got, plus all of the other configuration options such as the IP address ranges of the scope, any exclusion ranges, any options, so you can just check that they're all there. So now we've got that file, what we can do is stop the service for our current server. So if we just right click all tasks and then stop, that will stop the DHCP service. And then if we open up the services console and find DHCP server, and then right click on properties and turn this to disabled, so it no longer starts and we won't get any conflicts. If we come back to our new DHCP server, what we can do is browse to the file that we've just created. I'll just copy the entire temp folder and paste it on the C drive of the new server. So we've got our DHCP.xml. And then if we open up another PowerShell window on the new server and use the following command, it's basically exactly the same, but instead of export-DHCP server, it's import-DHCP server, and then the computer name with the new server name, and then the file, which is that file we exported. It will ask us for a backup path, but if we just give it ctemp/backup.xml, what that does is that will just store the current config of this server as a backup.xml file, but there's nothing here, so we don't really need it. And then confirm with yes. And now if we refresh our DHCP scopes, we should see now we've got our new scope, or our export has now been imported, and we've got the scope with the correct address pools. It's copied over all of our leases, as well as the reservations and any scope options we've had. And this is all running on our new server. Now, to test that this is actually working, if you go to a client, so if we come to our client and open a command prompt, before I did the migration, I did an ipconfig-all, and we can see that the DHCP server that this originally got its lease from is 10.0.0.1, which is our old DHCP server, which has now been turned off. So if I do an ipconfig/release, and then an ipconfig/renew, that should get us a new IP address, but it'll likely give us, well, it should give us exactly the same IP address. And it has 1.1. And if I do an ipconfig/all, we should see the DHCP server has now changed to 10.0.0.2, which is our new DHCP server. So we can see that it has now been moved over and the new server is correctly giving out leases. Now, that's all working and confirmed to working. The last thing you'll want to do is come over to the server and do right-click DHCP and then manage authorized servers. And then with your old DHCP server, when you're ready to decommission it, just unauthorize, so it's no longer authorized on the Active Directory network. And then you can decommission the server as needed. So that is how to migrate your DHCP scope from one server to another.